Okay, it's Mark, and today's, let's see, June 24th, 2015. And this live show is, we have it every week, every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central. And the whole goal of this show is to, help animators out and kind of inspire people, show different things such as videos and pictures and projects that people work on. And so I want to thank anybody who joins. Thank you for showing up. And of course, there's always the chat in our on our YouTube page, which you can see here. So I basically watch this on the side if people write things like Ron. He just said, "Ron skids in the door just in time," and so welcome to the show, Ron. Gonna remove you from the live broadcast here. So anyways, tonight's show, I didn't really have anything planned, so I loaded up a few things to check out on the internet. One of the latest studios that I added to our link list on animateclay.com, if you haven't checked that out before, at the top of our page we have a link section, and here there's, let's see if we can click this. So we basically have all of this stuff here, and we have a studio section. So what I'll do from time to time is if there's a studio that seems like it's pretty good and it's got some work coming in, and they're posting new things, I'll go ahead and post it up here. There's some of the more popular places like Aardman, and of course Leica is in here. There's Cup of Coffee. And so if you're not familiar with a lot of the studios out there around the world, there's a lot of places, and I try to also categorize things by where they're at. So there's one in Canada, Australia. Ginger Films is in China. Ideal Standard Film is in Germany. So I try to break it down so it's a little bit easy to understand for people. So if you live somewhere far away from where I do, and you're thinking, where can I get a job? Check out the studio links. All right. So that's really important to check out. And of course, if you need supplies, if you're interested in workshops, I have a 3D printing section, which I haven't updated this in a while, so I might do that because technology is really changing a lot. But there are different companies out there that can print up your projects and different programs that you can use to sculpt in. I should probably add ZBrush to this because ZBrush is a really popular but expensive program. Blender 3D is used, of course, I think Alba used Blender on her Time Space Reflections project. And it works great, and I think Ron Cole even said that he likes Blender as well. So, of course, that's something I'll have to work on later on. But so, anyways, these are things that if you're new to stop motion and you just want a one-stop place to find what's out there for you. A lot of places provide services and products. Of course, we do as well in our store, but there's other places out there that you might find like locally, like let's see, Animation Supplies. We sell their stuff, but they're located in the UK. So if you live in the UK, you might want to buy directly from that site because it's I don't know if the shipping is less now. I have first class shipping, which is pretty cheap, but still you'd probably get things quicker if you did that. Anyways, so, Daniel Horne signed up on our site recently, so I guess we'll start with... Well, let me go back to Zumbastic first. Let me cover this first. So I did add this to our links, as I mentioned before. And these guys are in Chile, or maybe Chile, I guess would be the pronunciation, but this site is it's pretty cool, and they do a whole bunch of different things, including stop motion and clay animation. and we're going to cover the clay animation side. They also have in 2 languages on this site. You can click on Spanish and English, which is nice. So it's a bilingual site, and I'm going to click on English just to see what happens. So you can see here a Zumbastico Studios animated series 2009. It says The Ogre and Chicken is an award-winning social values campaign. They're a series of 23 by 1. I don't know what they mean by 23 by 1 foot amusing stories. A friendly chicken and a grumpy blue ogre teach fundamental values and attitudes towards living a good and healthy life. So let me see here. What are you guys talking about now? Oh, so Ron Cole got his new camera, he says today. He got a Canon Rebel, which is cheaper than what was recommended to him. What was recommended? Was it the Canon 60D maybe? Because the 60D I think is a little more expensive than the Rebel. Or even the 70D. I think the 70D is the latest one, right? And so Henry from Turtleson Films, let's see, he said he just purchased DragonFrame, the software, today. That's great. DragonFrame is my favorite program so far for stop motion. I like Stop Motion Pro also, but I have less experience with it. Although their new Stop Motion Pro Eclipse design, I don't know if you want to say it imitates DragonFrame, but it's actually really, I think it's actually more intuitive than DragonFrame right now. They've really worked on making it user friendly. But I only beta tested it, and they never gave me a free copy. But I might buy one just for my PC because it's got so many cool things on there. And so back to this now. Zumbastico Studios. I didn't hear about these guys until recently, and some of their stuff looks neat. So I'm going to show this video real quick. Make sure the volume's up. And this is only 2 minutes long, but you can see, what they're doing in Chile right now. Pretty nice work, and there's not a lot of dialogue or anything in that, but that is El Ogro El Palo, which translates to the ogre and the chicken. And so it's pretty good work, and they've got a portfolio as well. Let me click on that. You can see that they've got some live action. They have some 2D type work, which is probably like Flash or something like that. Some hand puppets, I believe, and just a whole mishmash of and I'm not sure how they set this up with artists. It almost seems like what they do is they probably have a talent pool that they choose from depending on the job, but they're probably freelancers. That's my guess. I'm guessing that they're not really hiring people full time. I'm pretty sure this is like just a loose knit group of people, and they just kind of come together under one name to sort of help each other out. I'm pretty sure that's what they're doing. That's kind of what a lot of people do in stop motion, because it's hard for a studio to stay afloat and just bring in constant work. A lot of times it's just whoever approaches you and says, hey, I'd like an advertisement made, and who knows when they'll contact you. Which reminds me, I gotta contact somebody about that who wrote to me recently. But a pretty cool studio. So that's Zumbastico Studios in Chile, and they're in Santiago. So if you live out there, this is a place I would definitely contact. They have a Facebook page, which I'll click on here. And you can see they have more of their work, and you can sort of interact possibly by messaging them on this page if you're more of a Facebook user. And they have some photos of, looks like, presentations, and I'm not really too sure here. you speak Spanish, then it's helpful. And even it looks like even Peter Lord had something to say. He said, "We believe that this quality has potential." That's very nice. So Peter Lord giving props to the studio. Now, so Ron Cole made mention that he was gonna buy the Canon 7D, but the guy who recommended it has a ton of equipment and said there's no real reason to spend the cash because the Rebel is more than good enough. Yeah, isn't it like 12 megapixels, Ron? I think it's. I know this because I had to choose also between the 6D and 7D, and I chose the 6 because for the same reasons. I heard that the 7D had a few extra bells and whistles, but that it wasn't really like a big improvement over the 660. So, which I can't wait to see what what animation you do with it, just to see what you think of it. If you're using if you use Dragon Frame with it, it's really a piece of cake. It's so easy to use. Even if you don't know anything about cameras, you can just hook it up, and when you hook it up, all the settings can be changed right in Dragon Frame, and you can change the exposure, you can change the the f-stop. Well, actually you can't. I guess you can't do that. You have to do that manually, but at least on mine, because I'm using a Nikon. Basically, I'm using a Nikon mount with Nikon lenses, and you don't want to have automatic f-stop control, I heard, because it gives a lot of flicker to your film. So that's kind of like the disengaged part of the camera, and I just do it manually. So Ron says, I'm a Dragon Frame user, but up until now I haven't had a camera that gave me a true live feed. I'm so glad that's over. Yeah, I mean, without having a live feed directly, in your software, I mean, it just gives you a lot more options in terms of framing your shots and composing things and making sure everything's lined up properly. I mean, I don't know. I used to have like a giant like a 1980s JVC camera that was like 25 pounds, on a huge tripod, so that I could line it up next to my Super 8 camera when I first started out, and I would use the live feed on a TV screen and use dry erase markers, and that's what I used. And I would draw like an outline around the puppet, and then move the puppet, and then draw another line, and it worked pretty good, actually. But looking back at it, you did stuff to animate, and now it's just everything is so convenient and much faster and much better. So yeah, I'm using the 60D, Henry, if that's what you're asking, the Canon 60. And Jason Morrow says, I recently got a battery pack with the power cable for my Canon Rebel. It's nice to not worry about losing power. Yeah. They're kind of weird, aren't they? It's like you have like a battery pack with the wire sticking out of it, and you plug it in. When I first saw that, I almost broke my camera because there's like a little cable that comes out of there. When you try to close the door, there's like a rubber gasket on the side of the door that you close to keep your batteries in there, and I couldn't figure out where that wire had to go, and I tried to force the door closed, and I'm like, that's not gonna work. Yeah, so Evan DeRushy mentions that Canons work better with Dragon Frame for animation, and that Nikon's overheat sometimes, and the live view is lower resolution. Yeah, that was one of the things about choosing mine also, was I heard the same thing, that Nikons have some issues also with flicker, and that's why you should go with a Canon, and then you use your Nikon adapter and Nikon lenses, and that's what they use on Dragon Frame. Someone that worked on not Dragon Frame, on Robot Chicken Someone on Robot Chicken told me that, so I was like, well, these guys animate every single day nonstop, so I'm like, I better listen to that guy. All right, so moving forward, what else? So on our site, Daniel Horne has signed up on our site, and he's got some amazing stuff that he's been working on. He's a painter originally who decided to sculpt, and then he decided after he liked sculpting, that he wanted to do some stop motion. And I'm actually one of his friends on Facebook, and he's so talented. And one day I told him that I want to make a life-size, one-to-one scale sculpture of somebody to send as a gift, and I want to cast it in resin. And I'm not really sure, I know I can do it. It's not that that's a problem, but he has a lot more experience in casting heads than me, and I was kind of wondering what his technique was. And this is one of his Wolfman characters that he made, and you can see here he sculpted it, and he painted it and put in some fake eyes and did all his hair and teeth and everything. So here it is. And of course, this is something which is, the Wolfman has been sculpted by bazillions of people, and it's a sort of cultural movie icon, and that's kind of what he likes, movie monsters, like the classic movie monsters, and that's what he sort of specializes in. And I know he's even attracted some big time collectors, and like Kirk Hammett from Metallica. I don't know if he's brought some of his paintings or sculptures, but I remember there's something on here I saw about that a while back. And here's another one of his sculptures. And so I do a lot of these kind of sculptures also from some of my clients, and I just thought, wow, it'd be really cool to. I don't want to actually paint a realistic face, but I want to make it look more like bronze, the one that I'm doing. But I'm gonna ask him. He told me that if I have any questions, I could ask him. But he's done some stop motion stuff, and I'm gonna see if I can find that on here. I know he's got some videos. Here we go, videos. And some of the things that interest him are Mad Monster Party, because that's of course involves classic monsters, and you can sort of see that there's a similarity in style to some of these, like this one here. Let's play this one, which is only 11 seconds long. And this is Madame Maria de Creep, it says. So a lot of the stuff that he's done, all these puppets that he's made, he's never really turned it into a film or a movie yet. But I remember him saying that his goal is to do that, to make some sort of a short film. And these are just like tests to see how his characters move and that sort of thing. But I like the style of his sculpting, and he does like realistic, he does cartoony, and everything in between. So the Frankenstein puppet, I thought, almost looked kind of like one of these glow-in-the-dark figures I had as a kid, where they used this glow-in-the-dark. I had like a Frankenstein and a Dracula and a creature from the Black Lagoon. I had like all these little action figures. And I was in some store recently. Oh, it was Barnes and Noble, of all places. They had the same figures I had as a kid, like the classic monsters. And I think even for my generation, I was born in 75, so I kind of grew up, playing with those sort of toys in the mid 80s. And For me, I think my generation was even too old. Like, all those things came out in the 1940s, but people started making a lot of plastic action figures, and somebody decided to do those. But I never really grew up watching um, too many black and white films. There was those were somewhat going out of style when I was a kid. Here's the flowers for Frankie. So he says, after 40 years, here is my first test stop motion practice. I'm using my Frankie puppet. Let's see here. What's this? So, all right, what are we doing here? So here's one of his paintings.
Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of work on Bella's hand here. I grab some paint from my palette. Now you want to have your reference near your painting so you don't have to break your concentration and look for it elsewhere. But I go back and forth and do layer after layer of paint, going back and re-establishing some areas. You want to treat your paintings almost like a paint by number. Just putting the color where it's supposed to go. Putting the right value in the right spot. This way your individual values remain clear, not muddy, and it also keeps your form nice and crisp.
All right, so one of the nice things about what that having a painterly skill like that is that he can paint his characters and they look really neat when they're in color. These are all, of course, black and white, but there we go. And you can see he's got some of his paintings behind the puppet as well. So I know I don't have that ability to do that. If I ever had a monster movie where I had to have monster paintings in there, I would definitely give him a call and say, "Hey Daniel, you mind painting up some pictures?" But anyway, really cool stuff. And so he does sculpting, and let me see if he's got. I think this here is this a puppet or a full size character now. Ah, okay. It's a miniature, but this is a more realistic. Let me see if I can expand this maybe here. There we go. So this is a more realistic type sculpture as well, scaled to maybe 1/6 or so. I'm guessing. Maybe, actually, it's probably a little bit bigger, but it's Frankenstein. And so a lot of the things that he does in stop motion, uh, all of his other skills everything kind of works together. So I think if you start out in as a sculptor and you branch out into making films, eventually you learn to paint, because I know when I've painted sets and skies and things for my films, I've always learned a lot. Some really cool little eyeballs in there. And I'm not sure if I think this is the guy in Frankenstein where he meets Frankenstein and talks to him. And I'm not sure about these guys. These guys are, I think, I'm not sure. I need to brush up on my classic monster film characters. Some sort of a wizard character here. Some great detail on the hands and some rings and things. And that's great how, there's no clothing. It's just wrapped in some sort of like cotton batting type material of some kind here. And you can see already that the shapes and everything work great for this character. A lot of style to it, and I'm thinking that he's using super sculpey perhaps on these. That's my guess, super sculpey, and then he's painting them. And it looks like he's using acrylics, but it could be a number of different things. Dumbledore number 2. Yeah, so it's kind of, should I tag him? Should I tag this monster as Daniel Horne? Isn't it funny that he sculpted it and Facebook thinks immediately that this is Daniel Horne? What does that say about artists looking like their work? It seems Facebook agrees with, that concept. That's kind of funny, isn't it? Want to tag Daniel Horne? Not really. There's a scarecrow from Wizard of Oz, and yeah, I'm pretty sure this is Sculpey here. And some great use of fabrics and whatnot. That's one thing I've never tried to master is working with fabrics yet, but I think if you're doing a stop motion film, it definitely beats using clay. If you want to do something like a really big project, clay characters, I am all for clay faces and clay hands, but just from experience on my zombie pirate film, it just takes forever to animate something that has to be re-sculpted all the time, and over time it breaks down. And that's great. Look at this one. That's amazing. This is from Lord of the Rings, I guess. Not sure if that's supposed to be Einstein, but it kind of looks like Einstein in a rabbit suit or something. Okay. He's lucky to, I don't know if Daniel is married with kids or retired, or I've never delved into his personal life, but he's got a lot of time to work on this kind of stuff. Oop. My phone is making more sounds. So let's see here if there's any more. What's this? Nope, that's not it. That might be the end of all his stop motion stuff. Resin monster busts. These are somewhat scaled to stop motion proportions. Oh, okay, she's in some Godzilla suit, looks like. And it's 21 inches tall. That's like almost quarter scale. But I guess he didn't paint that one, did he? Let me see. There's no painted version. It's another interesting character. All right. So hopefully that inspires you guys. Here's one of his paintings. Really awesome, detailed, and the colors are great. So really excellent artists. Yeah, I think, you know, because if you paint already, if you have a sculpture and you translate, you know, your painting skills to your sculpting skills, and it just comes out great. So Heffel, however you say your name, I'm just gonna call you Heffel. Says, I can't make Super Sculpey and similar things work well. I had to go to hard clay for small stuff like that. So are you using like maybe Chavant clay, or what sort of clay are you using exactly? Because there are tricks, like if you're interested in making, for example, let's say you're making small miniature hands and you find Super Sculpey to be too soft. The trick is to get some Super Sculpey Firm. And when you use Super Sculpey Firm, it's somewhat brittle, I've found, unless it's really fresh. But a lot of stores, especially in the summertime, you buy it and it sits in those hot 50-foot trailers and they deliver it, and the change in temperature makes it kind of brittle, so I don't really like it. Okay. Hey, Dave. It's Dave Hetmer, and he's using Chavant. Super Sculpey Firm mixed with Super Sculpey to, let's say if you want a really firm clay, but it's not brittle, you mix in like 25% regular Super Sculpey, not the white stuff, not Sculpey, which is just white. It has to be the translucent, flesh-colored Super Sculpey. You mix that in like 25%. It works really good. And also, with the gray firm mixed in, you also can see what you're sculpting better than if you use plain Super Sculpey. Because that's one of the problems I've always had. Like when I worked for Natoli Engineering many years back, we sculpted Disney characters on these metal plates to be used for on a pantograph machine, which would shrink the sculpture down on a small die, a steel die. And one of the problems I always had with smoothing out Super Sculpey is that it looks smooth, and then when you bake it, all that translucency kind of goes away, and all the imperfections, you can see them. So Super Sculpey Firm is not so translucent and not so shiny, and I use like you can use rubbing alcohol at any percent. Like there's different percentages, like I think it's like 99% or whatever. You can use that. It works great. You can use your fingers, of course, but the Super Sculpey Firm would probably be something you might check into. It would save you a lot of time in molding and casting in resin or something if that's what you're doing. Or if anybody else is thinking of doing that. So Henry is asking, what's the difference with clay and Super Sculpey? Well, it's actually Super Sculpey. There's no T. Super Sculpey is a polymer clay. It's actually a clay, but it's made from different sort of plastics, which when heated, when you bake it in an oven, they can change their atomic structure basically and harden. So that's basically what it is. So it's technically it's actually a clay, but there's polymer clay, which is what Super Sculpey is, and then there's like Roma Plastilina clay. There's different brand names. There's wet clay, which is water-based, but it's still a clay. You know, it's just a different form. And so if you're using something that can be baked hard, it's sometimes a bit faster. If you just need one object, like a small prop, let's say a bowling ball for your puppet, and you want to sculpt it, you can use, you know, let's say we want to use oil-based Roma Plastilina clay, and you sculpt it, and you put your little finger holes in there or whatever, and then you make a mold of it, and then you cast it in resin. you're taking out that middle step of molding and casting before you have your final piece. You can bake it and then sand it smooth when it's hard, just like it's plastic. And you can, airbrush it. You can paint it with a paintbrush. You could dip it in, different things. You can dip it in more, like an acrylic resin or in varnish or something to give it a shiny look. Now, if you just use regular clay, you can't do that. If you want to go through all the steps, it's really complicated. But actually sculpting something that can turn hard is really helpful. And you can use, there are some water-based clays you could use on the market out there to do the same thing, which you don't have to bake. They're air dry clays. And there's like paper mache and all that kind of stuff. But those things tend to be really unstable when they dry, and they tend to crack. And like paper mache is not something you can paint as nicely as, if you wanted something shiny like a bowling ball, like I mentioned. If you're gonna paint paper mache, you can't really sand it nicely. There's a lot of different reasons for sculpting in certain clays, so it just depends on what you're doing. And Ron says that everybody makes the mistake of adding a T in the word Sculpey. Yeah, it's kind of intuitive to add the T, isn't it? And so Dave says that you wouldn't animate with a baked character, but you could make replacement faces. Yeah, if you make a whole puppet out of super sculpting and bake it, it's gonna be hard as a rock. But it's good though if you want to make something like we showed before, where there's, let's say, a 21-inch hardened sculpture that you want to put on just look at, put it on a shelf or something. And there are other ways to make puppets as well, not just clay. And I know the Lone Animator, we've showed a lot of this stuff in the past. And let me see here. Actually, you know what? I don't really want to do that. Let me see if this shows how this megalosaur was created. It's not gonna load up, is it? Why is that? Oh, okay, this is the reason why. If you guys can just give me 2 seconds, I'll be right back. Sorry about that. I had to check on my son, who is making some strange noises upstairs. But back to this, different ways to make puppets. This is one way, which is these puppets are built up with rubber. And here you can see Daniel, how he's sort of taken foam rubbers, and these are things that you can basically get out of a sofa that you don't want anymore. You can slice it up with some sharp knives. You can use things like an electric turkey knife for Thanksgiving that they sell, and you can cut it up into strips. And these techniques were done for how many years now? Maybe 80 years. A lot of these techniques. Marcel Delgado had pioneered these techniques, I think. He was one of the first people to do this, where you build your puppets up with string and simple materials. Let me close this. Let me go back to the original one I want to look at here. Come on now. Let's click this here. Oh, back to puppets. Puppets. Slowly loading. I had some of these photos on our website on animateclay.com, but I wanted to go to his site so you guys can see where these originated from. So here, for example, is a dinosaur T-Rex type character, you know, similar in design. Not sure if a megalosaur probably is a real dinosaur, actually. I don't think it's just for his film. Sort of like, you never know, because I know in Jurassic Park they have all kind of mutated dinosaurs and things that aren't quite accurate, but he started out with wire, and you can see he's added bones with wood and perhaps friendly plastic, or this could be a number of things. Maybe epoxy resin putty, epoxy putty, to allow for the tail to bend in a certain way so it doesn't get bound up or get kinks. And probably just some nuts and bolts as tie downs. And here you can see, so he's built up muscles, and he's also done another thing for this face, which I can explain. Okay, Lucas, I'm Mark. I'm the guy talking here. Who did you think was doing the show? Maybe Ron or... Yeah, Ron is really good at advertising the show, so I can see how that can be confusing. But here's this dinosaur that's been painted up. Here he is with his mouth opened. And here's a shot where there's some motion blur added in this scene. A composite shot. Maybe with revision effects, motion blur. But what he's done to make the skin on these is to sort of sculpt bits out of clay and then make a simple one-piece plaster mold. And from there, he would apply different, either latex rubber that's in a liquid form or in somewhat more of a paste, like the mold builder latex that you get in like a jar. It's not really a liquid; it's kind of thick. And I think they also have fillers of some kind, like maybe sawdust or something else in those. I'm guessing. But and then after that, he'll take bits of it and glue that skin onto this foam rubber padding that he's added. So it's basically called the build up technique. Let's see if there's some more in the puppets. Or there's some more pictures here. Let's see if it will load up. Okay, here, this might have some pictures of what I'm talking about. Well, there's just one. But he sculpted it, and this is what he'll make the plaster mold of. And he positioned the eye as well inside the sculpture, and then he'll make the mold of it in there, and then when he removes the clay, he'll put the eyeball back into the mold where it would fit in the female part of it, right? And then when you add rubber around it, that eyeball will stay in place. So here is, looks like, I guess this is like a dodo bird or something. It's kind of comical. Let me see what it says. There's a comment on that one. Okay. The Borogove puppet, it says, wasn't supposed to do that much. I just moved the beak and the wings, so it was fairly quick to build. Only the head needed a sculpt. The legs, actually knitting needles, were covered with cotton cloth, latex, and patches of wrinkly skin from an old plaster mold. The body is a paper ball covered with cotton and latex. So that's paper mache, like we were talking about before. So you can see why you can use different methods to achieve different things. And of course, paper mache would be really lightweight. So for this, you know, you want to make sure your puppet is not going to weigh a lot. Otherwise, it could sag and fall down. And so this is really a helpful place. And this is theloneanimator.com. I always kind of show this site because sometimes when there's updates, it's always fun to see what he's creating. And it doesn't look like there's too many new things, but I know with he and John Hankins recently made that film, which I don't know if I've actually shown that, so I might have to show that at some point. And Ron Cole says that his question about revision effects motion blur finally got answered. You can use it in After Effects Creative Cloud. You buy the add-on separately, but After Effects Creative Cloud is basically the same as buying it. That's nice. But I guess after a while they have a way to shut it off, right? I wonder if you install it on the Creative Cloud and then you disconnect your computer from the internet, would it work? I bet it doesn't. I bet you always need an internet connection. And so Lucas saw Ron Cole's Fall of Gravity film and said it was absolutely insane and he loves it. And I've studied your work for my graduation project that I'm finishing next week. I'm trying to create an articulated face armature. Cool. Well, Ron Cole has a lot of experience with that for sure. Let's see, what time is it? Got about 10 minutes. Yeah, I think Ron Cole, let me see here, wobbly tripod. Let me see something real quick here. Let's see. Yeah, so if anybody's interested, Ron Cole on his Wobbly Tripod blog has information about how to make faces that can be animated and his own personal techniques. But it's really complicated, and unless you're making a big project and you have a lot of time, you know, it's one of those things that it can be a daunting thing to do, but extremely rewarding if you do it. And, here's just some of the photos, just to kind of show some reference to what Lucas is talking about. And wonder if I can pause this on this one photo. All right, stop. Don't change. Okay. And there's no way to zoom in, is there? I guess there's not. But yeah, this is just one of Ron Cole's Trevor puppets, where you can see some of the mechanics inside of this underskull, which all connects to a silicone casting that was slipped over it. So all, like, you know, human muscles under the skin, he sort of added that, and all the cables connect to a box. And so all the little dials here, you twist those and they correspond to a different change in facial expression for the puppet. So I think Ron is one of the few people to do that in stop motion, although it's been done in live action animatronics. You know, Ron kind of took those ideas and translated that into a stop motion puppet. So very awesome. All right. So I have not watched this. I have not watched this film. This here is something that I found recently, and it's called Making of Eskimal Part 2 from Homero Ramirez Tina. Not sure how you pronounce it. I think it's Tana because it's an E and it's probably Spanish, but I don't know. But we're going to watch this, and it's only 5 minutes long, but it seems like an interesting thing. So let's find out what it's about. I don't hear any sound, so let's see if there's any sound to it. The volume is up on it, so let's see. Is there any sound? I guess not. Okay. That's kind of a shame. That looks really nice. Looks like he's used some sort of CG water there. Some water elements and some stop motion puppets. Looks pretty nice. Looks like he's demonstrating some of the cloud techniques that he's used. So I'm not entirely sure what he's done. Appears that it's probably in After Effects, I'm guessing. Fluids. Particle fluids. So he's got some snow going on there. So these are all test shots, I imagine, of some sort. Throwing in some different backgrounds, and that's pretty good. Here it looks like some kind of, it's like he's keyed out the little penguins somehow. Not sure how he did that, in fact, unless he painted them out or something, because they were black and white. Some water. Yeah, and you can see, you know, it's kind of it's really done a lot of layering there. But you know, one of the problems with trying to key out something like hair or like this cotton fabric he's used here is you can sort of see like a dark edge around it here. It always gives away, you know, what you're doing, and that's one of the hardest things in chroma key to get out of your shot. Looks like he actually managed to do it by the end here, so it looks a lot nicer. It's like some ice cracking animation there. This is definitely in something else, like maybe Maya, or maybe it's Blender. There's no sound and no description, but composition integration. All right, Henry, see you later. Thanks for stopping by. We're going to end the show in about 6 minutes or so, so you almost made it. So these are all pretty interesting shots. And kind of interesting. So he's got a rig coming off the back of that puppet. Maybe the legs are a bit unstable or something. I wonder why. I can understand it in this shot because he's almost flying away to have that rig, but when he was just standing up. This is a duplicate of what we saw before, I think. Even the igloo gets broken away. Yeah, so I think he's just repeating most of what we saw already. So a lot heavily, he's using a lot of chroma key here, and I guess I know Alba Garcia is doing a lot of wide angle shots for her film, and her set designer Lester was asking me if there's any solutions because their space is so small. Alba doesn't have a lot of space to make those sets, and there's a lot of tricks like forced perspective and things where you could do stuff like this where the camera zooms out and you see a broad area. You can do it on in a small, a large full scale, puppet size 1:1 scale, and then have backgrounds which are where you use forced perspective. You can sort of cheat that, but it's always difficult if you don't have a lot of space. So I imagine that Hormero here probably doesn't have a big place. Maybe he's in an apartment or something, and that was his solution, to sort of use a lot of chroma key for everything. So it's understandable. But I think most of us can probably agree that, if you make a scene, if the whole scene is created, it works better than when you chop it up like this. It's more believable somehow. So Ron is saying that there's nothing about his cable-controlled stuff on YouTube, and the best thing is really that tutorial on his blog. Ah, okay. There's a few other things that we are out of time. So let's see, how long is this? This is a 13-second shot. Thiago Calcado, I guess his name is. He says, I animated these scenes on top of a glass plate. They're the only scenes animated on glass for the short Drugo. Let's play this here. Oh, this looks pretty nice. That looks great. Wow. I like the motion of all these things. For shooting something on glass, it has a lot of excellent motion there. Wow, I like that. Even there's like the ropes or the chains there move properly, and there's some anticipation and some follow through. All great animation. I like that. And the style is nice. I wonder if they did something like make this stuff in Photoshop and then print it out and cut it out. It seems like they wrinkled some paper that they've... this definitely looks like it's printed. That would be my guess. But anyway, that's really nice. Really cool. I think the guys at Dragon Frame would like this because this is sort of up their alley. All right. Well, anyway, I think with that we will end our show for the night. It is 9 o'clock here, so that means it's time to go. Thanks for everybody who showed up. It was fun to talk to you guys and talk about your projects and your cameras and all those sort of things. If you guys are interested, of course, before we go, I should just remind everybody that we did add some more time to our latest challenge on our site, and I'm going to show you that before we end, just so that... Oops. It looks like Henry added something. I'll have to look at all these later. In our monthly challenges area, if you guys would like, make sure to click the enter button here. And the latest challenge, and I did change the date. If you guys remember last week, I did say this was going to end on July 2nd, but it's actually July 1st, so I changed that. So there's still time to work on that, about one more week. So make sure to get that done, and we will talk about everybody's entries on the 1st. All right, so see you guys all next week. Adios.